My name is Tim Dessler, and I'm working for the United Nations Association in Tromsø, FN Samhandling. And International Seminar is an own organization actually that started at the university with students, and then after a while, to give it a little bit more continuity, the university took over, and the International Seminar became an own organization. Today we have this panel discussion, and we will have three participants in this panel discussion. Fadel Soliman from Cairo, Hege Stuhog from Norway, and I'm going to introduce them a little bit later, and Jonas Jakobsen from the University in Tromsø. Nice. So the first speaker will be Fadel, and Fadel Soliman, he is a member of the International Union of Muslim Scholars who received his master's degree in Sharia in 2008. Fadel is an international speaker and presenter of Islam. He gave a talk earlier today at the university. Fadel, because people are not interested in hearing me talk. Okay. And I think we should give Fadel a big applause. So welcome, Fadel.
Let me tell you that I was, when they called me to come down from my hotel room, I was about to apologize and say I'm not going. Actually, the view is incredible on the 9th floor. I always heard that Tromsø is very beautiful, but not that beautiful actually. So I really congratulate you for living in a gorgeous, beautiful, sexy city like Tromsø. I start always by praising God Almighty, the creator, the cherisher, and the sustainer of this universe. And may his peace and blessings be upon his noble prophets, Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, and Noah, and all their followers and descendants. Dear respected audience, I am not here to debate. I am here actually to seek the truth. So I'm coming here to speak with an open mind and an open heart, expecting myself to be either right or wrong. Either I am right, or maybe the other panelists are right. Either I am wrong, or maybe they are wrong. So I am coming here with the courage that if at any time I find myself wrong, I will say, excuse me, I was wrong all my life. And I am now going to start in the right direction, because I was in the wrong direction. I have no problem saying so, because actually this is a glass of water for one reason. When they poured water in it, it was opened. And upside right, not upside down. Had it been closed or upside down, it will never become a glass of water. And I hope all of us come here with an open mind and an open heart. I also didn't come all the way here from Sri Lanka, because I was in Sri Lanka 24 hours ago. I didn't come all this way to waste your time to listen to my stories and examples and talk out of my own inspiration, but rather, at any time, feel free to interrupt me and tell me what's your evidence. I'm going to talk to you from the authentic teachings and the authentic revelations, or the authentic sources of Islam. The word of God, the Quran, and the Sunnah, and the authentic Sunnah, not any Sunnah or even, which is the real and the authentic teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We also, during this debate, should distinguish between the authentic teachings of Islam and the degree of success or failure of a group of people in implementing them. Because Islam has to be judged according to its own standards and values, not according to any people's good work or bad work even. I have a question actually that I'm raising today to the panelists, and especially to Mrs. Hege. Can a good practicing Muslim be a good Norwegian? This is a question that I wish that I can go home tonight with an answer to it. Can a good practicing Muslim be a good European or a good Norwegian? In my own opinion, yes, I can be a citizen of Norway. At the same time, I can be from an Egyptian background. I can have Egyptian roots. I have history behind me, actually, in Egypt. And at the same time, every place in the world that I went to can be a part of my identity. Since 3 years, and I'm drinking ginger tea every single day because I learned this in Uganda. So Uganda became a part of my identity now. I learned how to speak to non-Muslims in the USA. So every time I go to speak, and I need to speak every day, the USA became a part of my identity. I learned how to love the nature in South Africa. So South Africa is a part of my identity. So the issue is there any problem that I can be a good practicing Muslim, at the same time a good Norwegian? I need to tell you that as a Muslim, I have an example, a role model. And according to the Quran, the best role model for everyone who believes in God and in the Day of Judgment is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But actually, especially for Muslim immigrants, he is a more special example because he himself was an immigrant. Prophet Muhammad left his country, Mecca, with tears in his eyes, and he looked back and he said, "O Mecca, let know that you are the dearest country to my heart, and had not your people dragged me out of you, I could have never left you." After 8 years, Mecca was opened back to him, and he didn't go back and live there because he integrated himself fully in the new society. He loved the new country, Medina, which gave him support, and he gave it also all what he can, all what he has. He gave it his knowledge, he gave it his effort. And he said, "Oh God, witness that had not I am already born in Mecca, I could have been one of the people of Medina, and if the people of Medina go anywhere, I'll be just following them." He even changed a little bit of his culture in order to match the new culture of Medina, but in a way that does not contradict his religion. His wife was coming one day from a wedding, and he said, "Aisha, did you have fun?" She said, "Yeah, we had fun." He said, "And what did you sing in this wedding?" He said, "No, we didn't sing." He said, "How come you don't sing, you Meccans? You Meccans are not in Mecca anymore. You are here in Medina, and the people of Medina love singing. Why didn't you sing for them?" And he even suggested a song that could have been suitable to be sang in a wedding. But the issue is, when people look at Muslims and they want them to be invisible, it's not only that you have to change your culture, no, you even have to change it in a way that if it even contradicts your religion, we will be wiping out your culture. This is not acceptable in Islam. Yes, I can integrate in Norway, I can integrate in the US, I can integrate in the UK, but I'm not going to pierce my ears. This is not something that I accepted in my culture. It's not something that even is accepted in my religion. I'm not going to change my name. My name is Fadel Soliman. They used to hear it, by the way, on the phone in the US as Father Sullivan. And I never corrected them until I get my discount. And then I spell it, F-A-D-E-L. But the issue is, no, yes, of course, I can integrate the way Prophet Muhammad integrated, which is sharing cultures. Whatever good I have, I'll give it to you. And whatever good you have, I'll take it from you. And I have no problem with this. I don't want to take much, actually, from your time, but no, many of the teachings of Islam tell Muslims you have to integrate and do good. Because actually, we have something called the concept of salvation. The concept of salvation in Islam is different from the concept of salvation in any other religion. Because in Islam, if someone becomes Muslim, this doesn't mean that he acquired a visa to enter paradise. No. Still, he can be punished on the Day of Judgment if he doesn't do the good work. The concept of salvation in Islam is a bird that flies with two wings. The first wing is faith. The second wing is good work. Faith alone is not enough. Like mathematicians say, faith it is necessary but not sufficient. So this is something very important to understand, that a Muslim, his universal faith is connected to his local behavior in his society, in his environment, in his neighborhood. So those are the kind of teachings of Islam that help Muslims integrate in their societies. One also of the very important concepts of Islam is the original sin. Unlike Christianity, if you ask any Christian about the original sin, he will tell you that Adam ate from the forbidden tree. And we know the rest of the story. But in Islam, actually, the original sin is different. The original sin in Islam is the very first sin ever committed. And we don't believe that sins are inherited. But the issue is, if we say original sin, that we mean the very first sin. The very first sin, according to Islam, is not the sin of Adam. It is the sin of Satan, the devil. When God Almighty created the human being, he ordered all the creation to bow down and greet this new creature. Because this is a VIP creature who has superiority in knowledge and the freedom of choice. And all the creation obeyed except one, Satan. God Almighty blamed him in the Quran, saying, "Why didn't you prostrate yourself to the one that I created with my hands as I commanded you?" Satan said, "Because I am better than him. You created me from fire and you created him from clay. I am white and he's black. I am European and he is Arab. I am Arab and he is Indian. I am Indian and he's Malay." So according to Islam, the original sin is not a fruit that was eaten from a tree, but rather it is racism. And God told him in the next verse, "Get out from paradise. You cannot act as a racist here." So according to Islam, racism is the original sin, and racists have no place in paradise. In my own opinion, this is what Islam can give to the world. The challenge which is facing each and every one of us is not to think himself or herself superior because of his color, or his race, or his sex, or his language, or the kind of food that he or she is eating. There's a lot in Islam actually that can offer to the West. And I don't want to take all my time now because I want to listen to the other speakers and then start the debate. I just want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be one of your presenters today. Thank you.
Fadel, just a second. Before you sit down, maybe because one of the questions on the post and everything was like that after the tragedy that happened on Utøya and in Oslo, we were very quickly in making the connection between terrorism and Islam. So could you comment on that before you, like maybe in a couple of minutes, why you think that is?
Well, now any problem is automatically connected to Muslims. My only problem yesterday on SAS Airlines is that my laptop was on sleep, not on shutdown. So I opened it and I shut it down, and still this was not enough for me to be on the plane. I think that if this happened to someone else, he could have been given a chance. No, of course, now the media is creating a monster called Islam and Muslims. And I think that also some Muslims, few Muslims by the way, are helping the media in this creation. I have to be self-critique because actually the rest of the story of Adam, because we believe that Adam ate from the tree, like Christians believe, but not so that the sin can enter the world and God sends his son to be killed. No. We believe that Adam ate from the tree and then he got stuck. He didn't know what to do. So the Quran says God inspired him a prayer to use in order to repent, and the prayer was what? "Oh God, indeed we wronged ourselves." So what we learn from this story of Adam is self-criticism. And as Muslims, our intellectual attitude should be self-criticism. It's true that some Muslims are not doing a good job and they are giving a bad image to Islam. But the problem is that many non-Muslims, instead of helping Muslims, they are like trying to spread it by telling Muslims, you can't be good citizens or Europeans. Anything else? Thank you.
Now, for the debate, International Seminar is working together with Al-Noor Center, which I forgot to mention in the beginning. And when they approached us, with the background of the terrorist attacks in Utøya and Oslo, and said, maybe we need a debate about this, we were very skeptical. We said, but we don't want to have a preacher, Islam preacher, to come here and tell us what the truth is. He said he's seeking the truth. So we need to have a debate. And then Alma Center said, okay, so let's invite one of his fiercest critics, in Norway, which is Hege Stuhaug. And it's her turn to talk now. And just a little presentation. Hege Stuhaug is a Norwegian journalist, writer, and women's rights activist. She has been noted since the 1990s, that's for over 20 years, which is quite a long time, for opposition to Islamism and advocacy for human rights, particularly women's rights, in relation to traditional Muslim attitudes and practices towards women. Since 2002, she's as well the information director of Human Rights Service, formerly an active volleyball player, which I didn't know about you. You've even won national championships in Norway. But that's not the topic today. The topic today is Islam, a threat to the West. Welcome, Hege Stuhaug.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. And in the invitation, there were 2 questions to answer. So I'm going to try to answer those questions. Number 1 is, why are we so quick in making the connection between terrorism and Islam? It shouldn't be a surprise that Muslims, as well as non-Muslims, immediately believe that the attack at Norwegian government in Oslo was conducted by Islamists. Such an attack has been expected, mainly due to direct terror threats from Al-Qaeda. The attacks on our embassies in the Muslim world in 2006 during the Khartoum crisis is also an explanation. I was also visiting Pakistan last time, now in March this year, and I met an embassy with the footprints of Muhammad. It was a fortress. Let's take some hard facts and have a quick look at only 1 month this year, September, in Europe. A group of 6 British-born men who allegedly planned to commit mass murder with suicide bombing missions against their own country were arrested in Birmingham. The goal was to kill as many people as possible. Same month, Spanish police arrest 5 Algerians suspected of helping finance an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group in North Africa. In Stockholm last Christmas, Taimur al-Abdali killed himself in a failed suicide attack. Failed in the sense that he only killed himself, not a lot of civilians as well. Then we are back to September, because his wife at that time, Mona Tony, she was arrested in September for planning terror. Then we can go to Scandinavia. In September, the Danish cartoonist Kurt Westergaard had to leave Norway in a hurry due to fear of attacks. And the Swede, the artist Lars Vilks, couldn't participate in a book fair due to the same reason, the same month. And the same month, 4 men were arrested in Göteborg in Sweden for planning to kill Vilks. Then we can go to Norway, and in these days a trial will open against 3 Islamists, and they are suspected of planning an attack on the Danish newspaper Jyllandsposten and to kill the cartoonist Kurt Westergaard. These are mainly pure facts from 1 month. According to Europol, there wasn't a single terror attack in 2010 from extreme right-wing groups. From the extreme left, though, it was recorded 45 attacks. From Islamist groups, it was recorded 3 attacks. And it was recorded 170 Islamists throughout the world were arrested for planning terror attacks. Then let's have a look at a similar picture. I'll rattle off some names that should be familiar to you. I've already mentioned Lars Vilks, Kurt Westergaard. Then we have Geert Wilders, politician in Netherlands. We have Robert Redeker, a French teacher in philosophy. Then we have the Dane Nasser Khader, a politician for many years. Then we have Ayaan Hirsi Ali. What do they have in common, these people? They all live in the West. They have criticized Islam or Islamism. and they are under constant threat of being killed, and therefore they are living under strict security around the clock. They are deprived of basic freedom due to critical speaking about Islam and Islamism. Can anyone here tonight point at one single prominent person, artist, intellectual, or politician who are in a similar position due to death threats from right-wing groups, from Hindus, Buddhists, from Christians? I don't think you can. And note this, after 22nd of July, the Norwegian Security Intelligence, PST, still says that the terror threat against Norway has not changed a single centimeter. The overall threat is from Islamic groups or individuals. Then I am coming to the second question. Are Islamic values a threat to Western values? Let me start with a quote related to the freedom of equality between women and men that we enjoy in the West, contrary to the situation in the Muslim world. Quote, "The obsession with subjugating women is one of the things that makes Islam so low, and the agents of Islam, from Riyadh to Tehran, from Islamabad to Cairo, and in my words, from Oslo to Tromsø, know that any improvement in the lives of women will lead to the demise of Islam and a disappearance of their power. This is why, among other things, they are so desperate to cage in women. Please don't be fooled by the few shrill voices, in or out of the veil, that enjoy the status quo and betray their fellow women." End of quote. You might not be surprised that these are the words of Ayaan Hirsi Ali in a lecture in the National Press Club in Washington in 2007. Then let me point at a charter formulated by the Muslim world, that means the umbrella organization OIC, in 1990, a charter that hasn't been reformed with one single word. It is about the so-called Cairo Declaration on Human Rights in Islam. The Islamic world's response to the UN's Universal Human Rights Declaration, a declaration OIC cannot accept. The Cairo Declaration begins by maintaining that Muslim nations are superior. Quote, "God has made the Islamic Fellowship of Believers the best nation." The declaration includes the following statements. It is prohibited to take away life except for a Sharia prescribed reason. Here we see that death penalty is legalized. Next, safety from bodily harm is a guaranteed right. It is the duty of the state to safeguard it, and it is prohibited to breach it without a Sharia prescribed reason. Well, here the declaration opens for cutting off hands for theft and so on. Men and women have the right to marriage, and no restrictions stemming from race, color, or nationality shall prevent them from enjoying this right. Something is missing here. OIC forgot to mention religion. As you know, it is crucial for the scholars and Islam that Muslim women have to marry a Muslim man, first and foremost to control her under Sharia laws and making sure that her children follow the religion of the husband, meaning Islam. This is also a tactic of power to increase the Muslim population, one part of jihad. The next, everyone shall have the right to express his opinion freely in such manner as would not be contrary to the principle of Sharia. Well, meaning, for example, that drawing Muhammad is prohibited, criticizing Islam the same. These are just some examples I'm giving you from this declaration. The declaration goes on stating this in the two last articles. all the rights and freedoms stipulated in this declaration are subjected to the Islamic Sharia. And the Islamic Sharia is the only source of reference for the explanation or clarification to any of the articles in this declaration. So, we can for sure say that the Cairo Declaration can hardly be called a human rights declaration. It is rather a Sharia rights declaration, whose purpose is to protect God, not man. Utterly absent from it, for example, is any hint of political or civil rights. Rights would appear to mean the right to be a Muslim and the duty to remain a Muslim. My conclusion is that this is a totalitarian declaration. It is a declaration in open fight with humanity and freedom values, the very core of the West. Let me underline this, and this is a very important fact. Yes, there are many peaceful Muslims who endorse freedom values. I know quite a lot of them myself. They are secular persons, as critical to Islamic laws as I am. Islam, though, if one takes the basic texts seriously, is not peaceful, is not human. That's why there is so much suffering in the Muslim world. That's why the vast majority of the countries in the Muslim world are not free, open, democratic societies, as monitored every year, for example, by the organization called Freedom House. That's also why there is a one-way bridge from the Muslim world to Europe. People are leaving for a better life, both economically and seeking freedom and humanity. So my conclusion is obviously this. Yes, Islamic values, as formulated in the man-made law Sharia, is a major threat to Western societies. The more basic Islam gets foothold in a society, the less freedom and prosperity, on the expenses the whole time of the individuals. What the Muslim world therefore needs is a huge portion of critical sense, enlightenment, free from superstition, if one is going to enter the modern age. Thank you.
Hege, before you sit down, could you maybe quickly comment? You can have this microphone of mine.
Yeah.
Because the roll-up from Al Noor Center, which is a Muslim society.
I can't hear you.
The roll-up from Al Noor Center, which is a society for Muslims, believing Muslims in Tromsø, it says working together for a better society. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that these kind of societies of believers and mosques could help to build a better society in Norway, in Europe?
Well, I haven't seen mosques where enlightenment is in the forefront in Europe. What I see is that the mosques, they connect to international movements. They define themselves according to this or this direction when it comes to Sharia. I can mention one very important mosque in Norway. It was the first mosque established after the immigration started from the Muslim world. It's called Islamic Cultural Center in Oslo. I think they have 4,000 to 5,000 members today. This is a branch of the Jamaat Islami movement in Pakistan. And in Pakistan, this movement is seen as extreme. Their religious political leader is Maududi. And Maududi, he is supposed to be the most important Islamist together with Said Qutb in the last century. And he was a disaster for Pakistan in the sense that when Zia-ul-Haq, the dictator from 77 to 88, Islamized Pakistan. He did that with the inspiration of Maududi. So this mosque is followers of Maududi, and you can see it. We, in Human Rights Stories, we had a project on this and another mosque in Oslo. And if you go into their library inside the mosque, you won't find any critical book. You will only find literature promoting Maududi's thoughts. So when they also promote bigamy, also in Britain and also on their webpage, yes, we understand what they want. They don't want to live according to secular laws. They want to live according to Sharia as much as they can.
Okay, so you don't see it?
You have to show me that mosque.
Okay.
I haven't found it. But I know that there are differences. Of course, if we talk about Tawfiq Islamsk Center in Trondheimsveien in Oslo, belonging to the Somali community, that is quite extreme as far as I have understood it. They also have supported Al-Shabaab. If you go to the Ahmadiyya Mosque at Furuset, the new one, when you enter Oslo now, you will see it on the main road. They are not at all that extreme. So you will have differences. But all of them, as far as I have seen these years, they have problems with turning their back to Sharia.
Very precise opposites here. Islam, no threat. Integration. There is a threat, and that's the reason why we link it to terrorism. And we're so quickly linking it to it. Now, Jonas Jacobsen from the University in Tromsø is going to have a little presentation for us. And he's a Danish philosopher and PhD student at the university here in Tromsø, and a member of the research group called Citizenship Encounters and Place Enactment in the North, or CEPIN, which is a multidisciplinary research school. As well, he's a member of the research school on pluralism, justice, and democracy in the Department of Philosophy here in Tromsø. And he has written extensively on secularism, religion, conflict, and social critique. Jonas, welcome.
Thanks a lot. So the fact that Al-Nur, the mosque, is a part of this arrangement proves that at least some mosques are interested in democracy and participate in democracy. So thank you for inviting me. I think that this short answer to the question, can I walk around freely or must I? Can I walk around? Thanks. Thank you. I think the short answer is Islam a threat? I think the short answer is that depends. What do you mean by Islam and what do you mean by the West? And there's no agreement. I mean, Muslims disagree among each other. Fadel discusses with his fellow Muslims what is the best interpretation of Islam. I discuss with Westerners, which of course can be Muslim, what are Western values, and we do not agree. And if we take the question as whether the relation between so-called Islamic and Western values is or should be, scholars, scientists, philosophers completely disagree. So, well, in fact, ironically, those who agree the most, right, are Western Islamophobes, and we know in Norway that those exist, and Islamic fundamentalists, or what should I call them, extremists, because these two groups perfectly agree that yes, there is a problem, there is a conflict, it's a violent one, we haven't seen nothing yet, it will come, and it will be a clash of civilizations, as Samuel Huntington has formulated it. And both groups are also very impatient about purifying their own tradition, their own culture from the pollution of the other. They also agree on another thing, namely, or they are similar in another respect, namely that they tend to essentialize the other. So, like we know what Western culture is like, right? It's pornography, it's meaningless individualism, and it's alcohol, right? Or we know what Muslim culture is like. It's suppression of women, it's violent behavior, hatred against infidels and so on. We know it. But What am I trying to do here? Am I trying to say that we don't know what Western culture is? We don't know what Islam is? Am I trying to say that we have some knowledge, right? We have some knowledge. We know, as Hege says in the Quran, according to the Quran, you talked about the core scripts of the Islam. The Quran, for example, commands terrible things of Muslims, for example, to suppress women, and to hate infidels, to hate non-Muslims, and to kill them. It is there in the Quran, right? For example, is this not Muhammad who said this? But for these enemies of mine, who did not want me to be their king, bring them before me and slaughter them for my eyes. That's typically Muhammad, isn't it? Isn't it? Or the next one. If a woman will not veil herself, then she should cut off her hair. Man ought not to have his head veiled, since he is the image and reflection of God, but woman is the reflection of man. So here we have a cosmology, a hierarchical cosmology, where God is here, man is here, and woman is here. But the first sentence is from Jesus. It's not from Muhammad. It's Jesus Christ. It's the Jesus Christ. It's the love thy neighbor, Jesus Christ. How can he say that? How can he want his enemies just to be slaughtered? The other quote is from St. Paul. So I'm not trying to say that you cannot find things like that in the Quran. Of course you can. If you are not a Muslim, then you can find many horrible things in the Quran. You will read it as horrible or shocking or different. You can also find many beautiful things in the Quran. And if you're not a Christian, you can find horrible and beautiful things in the Bible. But my point is that those who go looking in the Quran to prove that Muslims are determined by their religious conviction to suppress women or be violent, they completely ignore that the Quran, just like the Bible, is interpreted by different Muslims in different contexts and circumstances in different ways. And some of these ways, of course, are in conflict with liberal democratic values. Sure. But some of them are not. So what are we talking about? Let's be more precise and not speak about Islam. Just like that. Let's not write like Storhaug does about what is in your blog, what is human rights in Islam. Let's criticize the declaration, the Cairo Declaration, as you do. I also want to criticize that. But let's criticize the Cairo Declaration. We can come back to that. But I think we should be more specific about our critiques. But what do I mean by a liberal democracy? Let's use one of the most influential definitions in political philosophy in the West. Jürgen Habermas' definition. According to Habermas, a liberal democracy is a political community that governs itself not through culture, religion, nationality, ethnicity primarily, but through constitution and democratic procedures. So, a constitution is a system of rights, equal and individual rights for everyone, regardless of sex, gender, color of the skin, religion, and so on. And you have those rights no matter what the majority decides. So I have my freedom of speech no matter what the democratic majority decides. Otherwise it wouldn't be a liberal democracy, it would maybe be a democracy. On the other hand, we have the democratic procedures which protect what we could call our public autonomy. Human rights protect our private autonomy, our individual freedom. Democracy protects our public autonomy. Our ability to come together, for example, tonight, here, or in newspapers, or in the official public sphere in the parliament, to debate our disagreements, our conflicts, and our common problems, with the use of arguments instead of weapons. So, according to Habermas, the only legitimate force in a democracy, in a democratic debate, is what he calls the unforced force of the better argument. It's according to Habermas, democracy and human rights are codependent, so you cannot have one without the other. So it's clear that it's clear that human rights are necessary for a democracy. Because how can I have an open and fair discussion with you on something on which we disagree if you can put me to jail just like this because I'm a homosexual, because I have the wrong religion, or because you don't like what I say about your religion? So human rights are necessary for a fair democratic debate. On the other hand, and this is important, democratic dialogues are also important for human rights. Because if human rights are just taken as something given by God or the Norwegian state or by the Western Enlightenment, and here you accept it, and minorities who come here, they will just accept them or they will go away. Then human rights, the system of rights will just be imposed on citizens in a rigid way. And if they are imposed, then we get the problem that we, in fact, not only majority and minorities, but all of us disagree on the correct interpretation of human rights. So the freedom of speech, what is that? How should it be? How should it be used? How far should it go? What can I say about other people? I mean, we do disagree on that, and I am not saying that minorities should always get their will or something like that, but I'm saying that if minorities, for example Muslims, do not feel that they have a voice in a democratic debate, if they feel that only the majority has a voice, then they will be alienated from the. They will not be able to see themselves as authors of the laws and the rights. So democracy, inclusive democracy, is important for human rights also, according to Habermas and according to a lot of this Western Enlightenment thinking. How much time do I have?
4 minutes.
Oh no! Oh no! In my opinion, the fear of Islam that exists in our society sometimes undermines the very liberal democratic principles that some people defend against Islam. So, for example, one clear example is the banning of minarets in Switzerland. That is, for me and for human rights thinking, a clear violation of the equal right to religious freedom. Why can they not build minarets if they can build church towers and so on? A funny example is the Danish the Danish leader of the Danish Folkeparti, Dansk Folkeparti, the Danish People's Party, Pia Kjærsgaard, who during the whole cartoon crisis defended the unconditional right to say whatever you want about Muslims and Islam in the name of free speech. There should be Muslims, just everyone gets offended, you also get offended, just learn to live with it. But all of a sudden she wanted to punish Danish imams by law for what they said about Denmark, because they had violated Denmark's reputation. This cannot be unpunished, she said. So, okay, this is a clear contradiction of Enlightenment thinking, of the good tradition of Western liberalism. This is a clear violation of Voltaire, who said that I detest what you say, but I will defend with my life your right to say it. Because freedom of speech only for the majority is not freedom of speech. What about, I'm a little bit more unsure, I'm not so sure here, but what about the whole hijab debate in France? I mean, I don't have time to discuss this, but But I'm just asking now. I'm just asking. But is it not only dictatorships like Saudi Arabia and Iran who wants to decide what clothes the citizens should wear? I mean, why? I mean, is it those who want to those who want to defend the headscarf ban in order to save Muslim girls from religious suppression should at least admit one thing? I only ask for one thing: admit that we have to do with a dilemma. We have to do with a dilemma. And this is what the Norwegian philosopher Hans Stjernheim called the liberal dilemma. Can you force anyone to be free? Can you force someone to be free? I am free. I put on the hijab. My parents did not want it. They told me not to do it, but I do it because of my face. No, you're not free. You are suppressed. I mean, there's something, at least admit that there's a discussion here, a principal discussion that is worth taking.
You have 1 minute to bring it home.
Okay, thank you. A last point. Who gets to the, now? No, I'll just finish with a plea. And I had written many other things, but I will finish with a plea for Muslims and non-Muslims who want to be liberal. Namely, let the Muslim girls wear the hijab and let them take it off if they want. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak actually again, because actually all what was said, especially from Hege, needs like days to refute. And maybe if Ayman al-Zawahiri can hear us today, he would be very happy with this understanding of Islam, because this is exactly the understanding of Al-Qaeda to Islam. If non-Muslims will understand Islam the same way Al-Qaeda members are doing, this is their own problem. But it's not my Islam or the mainstream Muslims' Islam. This is the Islam of Ayman al-Zawahiri and Ms. Hege today. I was really shocked with what I said. And quickly, I'll be telling you what I really didn't like about this. Number one, the cut and paste game, which is always played against us. They tell you, kill them wherever you find them. This is in the Quran. I'm going to show you how they exact these things. But what Ms. Hege mentioned, actually, is a verse in the Quran which the Cairo declaration started, and she didn't continue the verse. She said, God have made us the best nation, or the superior nation. And she stopped. I bet you that if we bring this declaration, the verse continues saying, God have made you the best nation because you enjoin the good and forbid the evil and have faith in God. So it's conditioned. If you enjoin the good and you forbid the evil, you will be the best nation. But if you don't, then you're not the best nation. Maybe you're the worst nation. So this is something that we need to understand. I really want Hege in the next time when she takes the microphone to tell us, why did she stop at this point in the verse? Why didn't she continue reading the verse? Either intentionally to mislead us or unintentionally out of ignorance. So she had a homework to do before coming and throwing on people things like that. Islam is not a threat to the West. The real threat to the West is this kind of spreading hatred and convincing people and convincing and convincing people that their enemy is their neighbors. Your enemies are your colleagues in the university. Your enemies are your co-workers. This is very dangerous, and this is what led to the disaster that we have seen in Norway a few months ago, actually. Yes, it's true that maybe all the examples that she made about people who were arrested lately for planning and doing, but these are cases that were not finished yet. Most of them, by the way. How many people were released after that? Maher Arar in Canada, he sued the Canadian government and he got $18 million because they did this to him. So actually, no, we shouldn't jump into conclusions about things like that. It's true that, and that's exactly what I said in my first time when I spoke, that of course many Muslims are not doing a good job. But we shouldn't go and jump to these conclusions and say, those are the people and those are the Muslims who do so. And my question, I think, was answered clearly, that no, a good practicing Muslim cannot be a good European or Norwegian, because she said that those good Muslims are secular Muslims who are actually criticizing Islam and the Sharia. Talking about the death penalty, what is it violating in the Declaration of Human Rights? Which article? Article number 3, that says every human being has the right to life, continue, and liberty, which means that Andreas Breivik will not be executed. But if you put him in jail, this is also a violation to the same article, because he has the right to liberty. Therefore, according to this misinterpretation of the Declaration of Human Rights, killers should not be put in jail too, nor, of course, be executed. This is, let me tell you that.
You got one minute to bring
1 minute, okay.
1 minute.
No text, divine or human, is safe from being misinterpreted and misunderstood. Talking about the Sharia, Muslims are not asking people to apply the Sharia in non-Muslim countries. This would be crazy, actually. Crazy. But I would just quote one person who is a Christian Copt, one of the best theologians of Christian Copts in Egypt, and he is the vice president of the new party of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. I'm not a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but the Muslim Brotherhood, after the revolution, they are now having their own party, and the vice president is a Christian Copt. He said, the Islamic Sharia is the only guarantee for the Christians in Egypt, because secular democracy can lead to the closure of all churches within 24 hours, like what happened. I can look, when the minarets were banned in Switzerland, they were banned through democratic, transparent ways. But the Sharia, the only difference is the Sharia is democracy, but it holds the hands of the majority from oppressing the minority. The majority cannot oppress the minority according to the Sharia. Otherwise, it's exactly as democracy. Thank you.